We're going to have to figure it out, but they haven't done it so far, and we'll watch it every step of the way, my friend. I'll talk to you tomorrow.
All right, we'll see you tonight. Your show. Take it away.
All right, my brothers and sisters, Chris Cuomo here. Welcome to NewsNation. President Donald Trump can huff, Elon Musk can puff, but they cannot blow our house down. This, my brothers and sisters, is a nation of laws, and this administration has done something remarkable already. It has reminded so many that we need our system of laws, of the people, by the people, and for the people. Not just one or two people doing it to everybody else. Power is checked. Power is balanced by design and for good reason, to avoid overreach and reckless acts. Lord knows we need change in this country on so many different levels, but positive change. Breaking and making better are rarely the same thing. For example, finding waste is a plus. It's a must. It always has been. And if Trump finds more with Doge, great. Efficiency emails, good idea. Good idea. Accountability is key. But you do know that the idea that government has exploded in recent years is poppycock, right? You do know the size of the federal government hasn't changed in decades, right? You do know there are less people in the federal government as employees today than 30 years ago, right? Because I know Trump and Musk make it sound like it's gotten so much bigger, but that's not a fact. And now you have to ask yourself, why do they want you to believe that? To make it easier to make progress? Okay, I could probably live with that politically. But what if it's about something darker? What if it's about wanting you to hate your government? And not to want to make it better, but to break it. What is unique about the Doge effort so far is not its goal, but its unrelenting attacks of every agency, every deal, every contract, everything's bad. Musk pretending he has the power to fire and set standards for federal employees. I told you that was BS. I told you he was talking out his Elon. Pretend powers. But guess who else has said it now? The cabinet secretaries and even the president of these United States. Trump held a cabinet meeting today, and while he did bluster about what would happen if the cabinet secretaries didn't find efficiencies within their agencies, like it was an episode of his old TV show, he did give a clear message that the cabinet secretaries are the ones whom he has empowered to do the job of finding who to keep and who to lose within their agencies, not Elon. He can only recommend. That's what the president said out loud. The same thing I've told you repeatedly here, because that is the law. Musk can only make recommendations. And ultimately, the decision to fire employees is up to the people running the agencies. Listen to the president.
I want the cabinet members to keep good people. I don't want to see a big cut where a lot of good people are cut. I had a meeting and I said, I want the cabinet members go first, keep all the people you want, everybody that you need. I want them to do the best job they can. When we have good people, that's precious.
Now, has he said that all along? No. Is that frustrating politically, especially for Democrats? Yes. Does it matter to me? No, because for the 50th time, what this president says is not policy. I know we usually reckon it that way. Not with him. You've got to wait. You've got to watch. Same thing with the tariffs. Same things with all this huff and puff about what he's going to do to Ukrainians. It's all talk until it isn't. But you got to wait for that. Now, Musk, I'm not so sure. I'm not so sure why he is so adamant about blowing up government. I am sure he does not understand our government. He has made more incorrect assertions about the operations of federal government than I've ever heard by anyone, including Trump. He clearly hates the idea of federal government, but he cannot destroy what the founders built. Maybe he should stop trying to blow up what works and figure out why his rocket didn't work and blew up. Maybe that's where he should focus. The president was also reminded today that he, too, has limitations, rightfully. even as the head of the executive. Of course, the president has the ability to control staffing of executive agencies, and you may not like, and the employees may not like, and people at the agencies may not like decisions he makes about employees and who to lose and who to move. It's his call. Elections have consequences, and he can delegate that, as he did to the cabinet secretaries, and he could even, yes, delegate that to Musk, but he hasn't. However, Trump does not have plenary authority. He is not a king. He's checked by the two other branches. Congress passes the spending budget and the president executes it. He can veto, they can override, et cetera, et cetera. But this idea that the president gets to do whatever he wants with allocated spending and, oh boy, and it makes me save it for social media where they only know how they feel, not the facts. Save it for Project 2025. But that's not federal government, and it's not the law. And who says it? Not me. Trump's hand-picked Supreme Court just confirmed what I just said. The system set up by the founders to check and balance must remain. That's what's in the Constitution. Now, I understand that's not what Elon's pals want on Twitter. That's why they don't have the job. Interestingly, the Supreme Court didn't even explain the law in their ruling, which they should have. To me, it sends a message that, of course, the district court has the right to review and test the president's executive orders in considering a preliminary injunction versus Trump's spending freeze. That's obvious that they're going to give you a quick play on it. And you know what, another reason why? I think one of it was a little bit of a slap to Trump to remember that this is stupid. Don't be stupid. We'll tell you you're stupid. Also, the law is really clear, if not today from their ruling or yesterday, from the Impoundment Act of 1974. You see, we dealt with this before, and Congress passed a law. President Nixon tried to pull a move about how to allocate certain spending that Congress had already passed in the budget. And so they passed a law defining and refining who gets to do what when it comes to our spending. So it is clear in the law. Our institutions matter. Law and order matter, not just when you're chasing Mexicans across the border. It matters when you're chasing everybody who's overreaching and trying to breach what is lawful. That's why the Democrats shouldn't have made a mockery of decorum in the chamber. The institutions matter. That's why Musk should shut his mouth about being some minister in his own mind. And that's why the president must remember that every time he allows Musk to act in his place, it weakens him. Our problem is that it is an open question right now what MAGA stands for. Making America great? I don't know how you look at this economy and you look at what it has touched so far and see great as the obvious outcome. And when I watch Musk and I listen to Musk, I do worry that maybe the acronym stands for something else, like making America's government absurd. Because that's what it is when you say that Social Security is part of the debt and there are all these 150-year-old zombies getting all of these benefits, and that district courts should never be able to tell a president anything. I mean, I get he didn't grow up here, but didn't he have to pass some test to become a citizen? Look, that's how I see it. But it's also how the Supreme Court sees it. It's also how is now obvious to Trump's own cabinet secretaries. All right? So I want to get a read on the state of play, okay, about what members of Congress feel is happening in terms of the reins of power, okay, and what it means for what's going to be done as opposed to what's just said, all right? So, tariffs, Ukraine, the upcoming budget, okay? That's what I want to talk about. And I want to bring in Representative Randy Weber, Republican, Texas, was at the meeting, and I'm told, I don't like to get ahead of my guests, sir, but I'm told we're going to get a treat from you tonight. First, I want you to act as the agent of the audience and tell us what you made of the cabinet meeting and the balance of authority in the executive branch about who's making the calls and what you think of those calls. Please tell me, sir.
Well, hey, Chris, good to see you again. It's been quite a while since you and I had a chance to visit, so I'm glad to be on. And I'm glad you're paying attention. I appreciate that. I'm glad your viewers are paying attention. But look, here's the thing. There's been a lot of people complaining about Elon Musk, that he's unelected, and there's been protests and there's been signs and all that kind of stuff that come to those kinds of protests. But the truth of the matter is, from my viewpoint, presidents have the right to have advisors. Now,
Agreed.
Sure, one of our members in Congress said, well, he's only been here 22 years, citizen 22 years. What difference does that make? This guy's the richest man in the world. He's got some savvy when it comes to business and financial decisions. So he is President Trump's advisor, and he comes in there. And by the way, he did come and talk to the Republican conference last night. I guess you're sure of that. There in HC5. But he's looking at things. They're combing through things. They're making suggestions, and the president has the right to say, okay, we can do this or we won't do that. But he truly is an advisor to the president of the United States.
I'm fine with it. I think it was a really interesting and, yes, a smart choice by Trump. I don't think Elon has lived up to the hype yet, but that's okay. That's okay. The only one thing I want to ask you to specify, Randy, he can make recommendations, but ultimately they have to come to you if it's about adjusting spending that's been allocated, right?
Well, of course, that's true in a lot of the spending. Now, the president makes decisions all the time that don't necessarily affect policy or decisions, but may affect policy, whether it's border. For example, you mentioned the border. That's one good example. Whether it's dealing with Ukraine, that's where he's the commander in chief. So, you need to separate those two. There's some policy decisions. There's Department of Defense decisions. And then again, there's things that the president does that Congress doesn't do, and vice versa. This is, this is a three-legged stool: judiciary, right, administration, and then Congress. So let's keep that in mind.
100%. I'm with you. But I can't believe, how come this guy doesn't have a tie on at this meeting, Randy? I'm just kidding. I want to hear about your poem. I heard that you put pen to paper, extolling the possibilities and the potential of what Doge could bring. Would you give us a taste?
All right. You asked for it. You get it. So here's my poem. I wrote it, and in full disclosure, I can't blame this on anybody else. So here's my poem. Elon works from dawn to dusk, and then it dawns on all of us. He's figured out what's crazy wrong. We should have known it all along. He's going to fix this spending spree and make life better for you and me. He's exactly what we needed now. His detractors are about to have a cow. But I believe that when he's done, it'll be Americans that have won.
I love it. I love it, and I hope that it is true. We need change. We need better. When you talk about cutting spending, though, don't be unfair to Elon. He can't get us out of this mess that we're in. He's finding pennies when it comes to the pounds that we are paying in our debt service. Do you believe in this budget negotiation that I really believe this is going to be the defining moment of this administration, certainly until the midterms? If you want to extend those tax cuts, there has to be not fat found in the agencies. You're talking about muscle and bone if you want to get the spending to where it needs to be pre-pandemic. Do you think that you guys have the will to do that?
Well, I think we have the will. Are we going to be able to pull it off? Because we've got to get our friends across the aisle to work with us, especially over on the Senate side, because, it takes 60 votes. Although we're going to reconciliation, which won't take 60 votes.
Right.
And so I'm watching all this. I'm on the Energy and Commerce Committee. We've been given the task of going and finding a lot of things. You're seeing several different committees that are doing this. I believe we're going to get it done. The numbers that we're hearing, I'm not real thrilled about. We've got almost $37 trillion debt. We're not talking about near that kind of money, but it is a start where we recognize that things can't be going as usual, and we've got to take those steps to cut spending. And so, the dates. Originally, I think April 14th is the CR, and then originally it was April 4th on reconciliation, which I understand has been pushed back now to the last week in May, I think. So you're seeing this unfold. One of the you've heard this, Chris, you've been around a long time. You're watching the sausage get made. But I think we're going to pull it off.
I just think you got to lean out the sausage. You know what I mean? It doesn't taste as good all the time when you do that. We add pork to the venison sausage for a reason. But, you know, I mean, this is real. If you want to extend these tax cuts, because, you know, look, I mean, you lived it in 2016, cost Paul Ryan his position in government because he was a real fiscal conservative. And those tax cuts wound up not being paid for except for the infusion of cash during the pandemic, right? That changed the calculus of how much money was in the economy. It wasn't because of those tax cuts. And what do you make of extending the middle class portion of the tax cut, but not the top bracket, and offsetting it with the spending cuts so that they're easier to pay for and you keep the cut where it matters most, which is for the working families?
That's not what I've heard. Now, we've been having this negotiation in committees back and forth now for well, of course, Trump's been in office, 6 weeks? Been in office
7
6
years.
weeks. Well, you talk about the first 4 years, yeah. But look, people are trying to blame him, saying he's not getting done, prices aren't coming down, inflation, blah, blah, blah. And, you know, one of the great, I guess it was Adam Smith, economist. I'm going back now to high school. I think he wrote that inflation is too much dollars chasing too few goods, you know. And so inflation is taking place and people are saying, well, Trump should already have it under control. Price should be coming down. It's not going to happen to people in 6 weeks.
No.
But I think what you're going to see is we're going to get in. Say again?
He should have said it the other night, Randy. Look, he put himself in this jam by saying he would do it day one. You know, that's the problem with talking big on the campaign trail. But I thought he should have started the other night by saying, look, things are going to get a little worse before they get better. And I'm just being straight with you. I know it's not what I said during the campaign, but it's where we are. He doesn't have to run again. Might as well be straight.
Well, and look, anybody that has watched this for any length of time that has a shred of common sense understands you're not going to go in there and turn this around. And since you brought up the other night, I was right across the aisle from Al Green when he started his thing about trying to talk over the president. I thought that was pitiful, Chris. I thought that it was so uncalled for and so out of line. Yeah. And you may have seen the video. I said, get this guy out of here. And that's what and you know this, the speaker gave him a chance, Chris. Yeah. He said, the gentleman is asked to calm down, step back, or I forget how he said it. And he said, warn him, if you don't, then we're going to have the sergeant at arms remove you.
No, he wanted to be thrown out.
But there's just a lot. I mean, my friends across the aisle, Democrats, they don't like Trump. They suspect that he's got some kind of wrong motive. They don't like the fact that he hired Elon Musk. I say hired, that he's got him as an advisor. Again, I go back to what I said earlier on. The president has the right to choose advisors.
Yeah, 100%.
And so,
100%.
And so, it's going to take some time. We're going to get there. We're going to work hard. I do hope, my Democratic friends across the aisle, that they will work with us, that they will help us to cut out as much of the lean as we can. The fat as we can, get as lean as we can, because the American people are depending on us. They really are.
Yeah, Randy, listen, I don't disagree with the aims and objectives. People want better. They want government to work better. You just got to be straight with them. And I appreciate the poem. I hope that you can bring the same sense of style and creativity to the upcoming negotiations. You are always welcome here to discuss what happens going forward. I'll come looking for you.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you, Chris.
All right, Randy, God bless and good luck with the work of the people.
You too.
Take care. 4 minutes and 35 seconds. Coming up, Senator Joe Manchin, I have watched work for people for a long time. And I'm telling you, I said it when he announced, the Democrats are going to miss him. No, he wants to work with the other side too much. Now where are you? Manchin is out of office. What is his advice for Democrats? What does he see? What does he believe needs to happen for all of us? Love having him. He looks 15 years younger. I knew it would happen. Next.
A NewsNation exclusive Monday. Chris Cuomo, Tucker Carlson. The conversation continues.
You're going to have people say, why are you talking to that guy? And I love answering the question.
Don't miss a special edition of Cuomo, Monday, 8, 7 Central. To find NewsNation on your screen, go to newsnationnow.com. Weeknights, trust NewsNation to bring you the day's events across America, breaking down the issues from all sides with critical analysis that's tough but fair, pursuing the truth in search of justice. Elizabeth Vargas, Chris Cuomo, Leland Vittert, Ashley Banfield. The new primetime on NewsNation.
So what do you say? Let's get after it.
News with respect for all Americans. Weeknights starting at 7 Eastern only on NewsNation. To find NewsNation on your screen, go to newsnationnow.com.
Are you a people pleaser? That's a common term for those who self-sacrifice, those who put others before themselves. Dr. Gary Probst here with thoughts about a tendency that perhaps we all should have. In a moment.
David was in big trouble with the IRS.
At first, I didn't owe that much, but after this year, it was out of control.
Then David called Get a Tax Lawyer.
Right away, they were like, oh yeah, looks like you're qualified to save.
Get a Tax Lawyer went to work.
Should have called way sooner.
Get a Tax Lawyer has helped thousands like David fight the IRS and get a fresh start.
Call 800-783-0798. That's 800-783-0798.
Psychology teaches that those who serve others may fear rejection, have self-esteem issues, and don't feel they matter. Thus, they focus on other people. They do so because they don't feel they are worth sacrificing for. Well, I'm not buying that. I don't try to change that in people. It's the trait of angels, the 20% of our population who do the right thing by others without hesitation, such as police officers, firefighters, and members of the armed forces, volunteers, people who help at the food pantry and comfort the poor and aged. They're the people who fight to protect children. They're the people dogs always feel comfortable around. It can reach a point where a person is cheated, mistreated, taken for granted. That's part of the danger of being a people pleaser. But those who operate at a higher frequency understand and accept that.
We asked parents who adopted teens to share their journey.
If you build a relationship, then it becomes easier. If you build trust, it becomes easier. As a parent, you want what's best for your child. To give them the love that a child needs is probably the best thing you do for a teenager.
Learn about adopting a teen from foster care. Visit adoptuskids.org to learn more. A message brought to you by Adopt US Kids, the U.S. Department of Health and Human Services, and the Ad Council.
Battle is wide open online, just waiting to be stolen. All it takes is a forged signature, a notary stamp you can buy online, and a...
For 75 years, the Muscular Dystrophy Association's voices have thundered through the halls of Congress.
For 75 years, we've willed the impossible into existence.
For 75 years, the MDA community has pushed the science,
shifted the narrative, and established the field of neuromuscular medicine.
And until that day when this is all a thing of the past,
you couldn't stop us if you tried.
Join us and celebrate 75 years of breakthroughs at MDA75.org.
Want to catch some catchphrases?
Oh, yes, Master.
Jeepers, jeepers, jeepers.
Here's Johnny. You won't be able to get them out of your head.
Nano.
She can kiss that quiet.
Oh, my stars.
And that's a good thing.
God will get you for that.
Catch classic catchphrases all day long on Antenna TV.
Good night, George.
Good night.
The more you listen to your kids, the closer you'll be. So we asked kids, what do you want your parents to hear?
I feel sometimes that I'm not listened to. I would just want you to listen to me more often and evaluate situations with me and lead me towards success.
Listening is a form of love. Find resources to help you support your kids and their emotional well-being at sounditouttogether.org. That's sounditouttogether.org. Brought to you by the Ad Council and Pivotal.
Last year, millions watched.
We are not supposed to be doing this.
Monday, two of the most prolific voices in media meet again. Chris Cuomo, Tucker Carlson. The conversation continues, and no topic is off limits.
Whether you like it or not, whether you mean it or not, you wind up playing the game.
Don't miss a special edition of Cuomo. Monday, 8, 7 Central, only on NewsNation. News for all Americans.
Senator Joe Manchin is missed by the Democrats. He's in the Senate over a decade. He's been serving West Virginia since I got in this business. And I wanted him to come in to help me understand what's going on with that party, what we saw the other night in that chamber, and what he makes of the administration thus far. Senator Joe Manchin joins me right now. It's good to see you, sir.
Good to be with you, Chris. Hope you're doing well. You look good. You look rested. Let's go.
Boy, you leave Thunderdome, you look like you're 30 years old all of a sudden. This is what happens, huh?
I feel like I'm 30 years younger, too.
So here's my question. Your party lost you because of what they were insisting on, and I believe we saw it the other night in how they handled the lack of decorum, how they handled that kid who everyone should have wanted to celebrate. What was your read on what is going on there and what it means about why you had to leave?
Well, it's so many reasons. Okay, we can get into the details, but let me just tell you, Chris, I kept thinking, my wife Gail and I were watching this, and we said, can you imagine if I was still there? I'd be the only one standing on that side if I was still caucusing with the Democrats. And I said, where have we gone as a nation? Only in Washington you see this type of inhumanity, disrespect, no decorum whatsoever. This is not America. It's not who we are. And the extremes on both sides are wrong. Hatred is the name of the game. You know, their business model is to make you afraid, so fear and hatred. And that's not who we are as this country. That's why I just couldn't be a Democrat any longer, you know, and the working person doesn't really know, are we there for them or not? But on top of that, it's just, can't they say I made a mistake? And what I mean by that, the border. It was wrong what the Biden administration did at the border. With that, maybe they had good reasons. They just miscalculated and made a mistake. Own up to it. And just say, listen, I want to work with my Republican friends now to secure our border. I want to have legal immigration so we have people coming here to do the work that needs to be done. All these things they can do. I want to make sure that we get our financial house in order. We have basically $36.2 trillion of debt. And all I saw today on the television screen coming across was that the Doge report has saved $692. $692. Every man, woman, and child is responsible for $104,000 of debt. So you know what? You're $103,000 plus change short if you want to think you're really helping. No one's talking about that. That'll be the harm for our country if we don't get our financial house in order. Nobody's talking about it. And if you're going to have
We're talking about it.
Yeah. If you're going to have all these cuts,
we're talking about it.
Okay. If they're having these cuts.
Well, that's what I want to ask you about.
Yeah.
I want to ask you about the cuts, Joe. So I believe this is the opportunity for your old party, okay? You know that within the Republican ranks, there are still real conservatives there that don't want to extend those tax cuts and think that Doge's pennies on the pound that we're paying in debt service is going to get it done. They're going to want fiscal austerity that Trump probably doesn't want, but he's going to want his tax cuts extended. They're going to have to come to the Democrats, and there's an opportunity in that. Where should your party be looking to focus in bringing spending where it needs to be to make the budget make sense?
Well, the budget process is very convoluted and very few people can follow it, okay? And I think it was designed to be that way, and it's hard to explain it because you're into the weeds so much. But for 21 years, we have never balanced a budget. 21 years. And the 14 years I was there, we never even did basically a budget to where we're doing the whole appropriations. There's 12 appropriation bills. An appropriation bill we usually have for each segment of our society, whether it's health and human services, whether it's the defense, whatever it may be. And then you put all that together and you put your budget together. What you ought to be doing, Chris, is looking basically by the laws that we have passed in Washington. The budget's supposed to be done on certain days. So by the end of the fiscal year, you have a budget you vote on. We've never done that. You know what happens? They wait to the end of the year, and then four people's offices, the top four, control everything with an omnibus bill and throw this massive bill together. Everybody's wanting to go home for Christmas, and nobody knows what's in it. And we continue to just pile on more debt. So when Donald Trump goes in there, he says, I'm going to change things. That's fine. People still supported him after his delivery Tuesday night. They were still supportive. They said, he took charge. Okay, he's out there. He's only been there 45 days. He is our president. He's my president. He's your president. He's every Democrat's president. Come on, guys. Get yourself in a posturing that I'm an American. I want my president to succeed, but be able to speak respectfully to truth to power. And if you're against something, make sure you have a reason why you're against it to make it better and be for something. Just don't be against it because somebody else on the other side's for it. That's the problem. And you can't get people talking about it anymore today. So I just said enough's enough. So I couldn't change it for 14 years inside. And I'm trying to tell people, they've weaponized the primary process, Chris. The primary process is if you don't do what I'm going to say, then 2026 I'm coming after you. Whether it be a Democrat or Republican, you're not Democrat enough, you're not Republican enough. This is wrong. We have to open these primaries up so the best person can survive and they can't get targeted by whether it be the president or the leadership of the Democrat or Republican Party.
Amen. Senator, you should run for office. Joe Manchin, thank you very much for saying what makes sense.
I'm going to help my friends truly get their minds back together. The purpose, you take an oath of office to defend and protect the Constitution. You don't work for anybody but the people that hired you. And I told Harry Reid one time, I said, Harry, you didn't hire me and you can't fire me. Okay? And I don't work for you. I work for the people of West Virginia and an oath to my Constitution. I want my friends to get that backbone. Know why your people from your respective state that love you voted for you. Okay? And do your job as an independent. As a third branch of government, do your job.
I love it. Joe Manchin, you're always welcome to be here. I miss you.
Well, I miss you too, Chris. So I want to get together.
Thank you for being here.
Thank you, buddy. Bye-bye.
We will. All right. God bless and thank you. 4 minutes and 30 seconds. Boy, it's common sense, right? Think he had to leave because common sense has no place in that place. Damn. Today we learned that the European allies are now considering not just building up their own armies, but now withholding intelligence from the United States because they're worried what they know could wind up in the hands of Russia. Wow. Also today, Trump says, hey, you 200,000 plus Ukrainians that are hiding from the war here, I think I'm going to send you back. Is that a good move? Next. The president embarrassed Ukraine's leader. His people now call Zelensky a dictator. And now the United States has stopped sharing intel with Ukraine as they fight for their lives. The latest move that is supposed to help facilitate peace is our president announcing today he's considering whether to deport 240,000 Ukrainians who fled here after Russia invaded. Why? Listen.
We're not looking to hurt anybody, and we're certainly not looking to hurt them. And I'm looking at that, and there were some people that think that's appropriate and some people don't, and I'll be making a decision pretty soon.
I don't know how it would help them, right? Where's it better to be? America or a war zone? Now, in terms of how this is playing, now it's reported that some of our allies don't like what they're hearing. Britain, Canada, Australia, now they're considering whether they should cut the United States off from their intelligence. Crazy. Why? They're worried that Trump would give it to Russia. So what is going on here? Let's ask Tracy Walder, former CIA officer, now a NewsNation national security contributor, and Chad Wolf, ran the Homeland Security Department in Trump's first administration. Thank you both for coming in to help me understand. Chad, what is your read on the Ukraine potential ending of TPS, temporary protected status? Do you think this is just another saber-rattling move, or is there an upside to sending 240,000 people back to a war zone?
Well, I think well, thanks for having me on. I think the issue at stake here is that the actual categorical parole program, it's called Uniting for Ukraine, that President Biden and company put in place. And if you recall, President Trump, one of his first executive orders was to have his team take a look at all of those categorical parole programs. And what we saw over time is that the Biden team just made up these for a variety of different countries, right? The 4 countries in the Western Hemisphere, as well as Ukraine and a few others. And so that doesn't really conform with the law. It's not legal. I think a lot of folks would argue. But there are obviously bigger issues at play, geopolitical issues here with Ukraine. So in one case, you've got an immigration kind of issue that the immigration team is taking a look at. But obviously, on the other hand, you have bigger issues at play with Ukraine and everything that the president is trying to negotiate at the moment.
Quick bump follow on that, Chad. When you look at the calculus of what needs to be dealt with when it comes to our immigration, legal and illegal, where does this program rank?
Well, I'd say the categorical parole programs that the Biden team put in place rank pretty high, right? It's a way that allows individuals that otherwise don't have a legal right to come into the United States. It allows them into the United States. And what we've seen over time is they haven't been properly vetted. So I think if you want to allow certain groups of individuals come in, such as the Ukrainians and others that have legitimate rights, then you actually need to put them in the right program. You need to vet them, and you need to allow them to come in. I will say, though, with Ukrainians and others, obviously, this idea that you need to leave your home country because something is occurring, right? It happens from time to time, whether it's asylum or refugee status. Worldwide, the trend is to make sure that you find the safe third country as close to your home country as possible, because obviously when conditions improve, you want those individuals to go back home to restart their country, businesses, and everything else. So there are other places in the world, particularly there closer to Ukraine, that a lot of these individuals can go as well.
That's a good point. Tracy, assess for me the meaning of us not giving our intel to Ukraine and the allies I mentioned not giving us their intel.
Well, thank you so much for having me, Chris. I think, the biggest issue and the individuals are really talking about in terms of information sharing are what we call the Five Eyes, right? The English-speaking countries. So Canada, New Zealand, Australia, the UK, and then obviously the US. We share information actually very freely with those four other countries. It's really always been that way since the inception, really, of the CIA. And part of what I think people don't realize that we really rely on them for is what we call blind spots. Intelligence blind spots. We do not have access to human intelligence in certain countries, Iran, right, being one of them. And we really rely on some of these other countries to give us human intelligence about imminent and potentially future attacks. And so when we do that, we are really crippling our capability and our ability to stop anything that may come to the United States. We also share signals intelligence and imagery intelligence, and that's really important as well. Also, we know that Secretary of Defense has put a pause basically on Cyber Command collecting or engaging in offensive malware operations against Russia. That's not good either. We had solar winds that occurred that cost us billions of dollars. And so when we use national security as a bargaining chip, that is incredibly problematic and makes our intelligence apparatus appear unstable. And that's why individuals are worried about sharing it with us.
How bad is it for Ukraine if they don't get U.S. intelligence in their war with Russia?
I think it's bad. I'm not sure that it's categorically bad on the scale, if you will, because I do think that the British and those other, Four Eyes, if you will, are sharing information with them. And they do have high capabilities. I believe we have more, quite frankly, in terms of signals intelligence. I think it's mainly targeting packages that's really going to sort of suffer, if you will. The CIA does put together a lot for Ukraine. And I think that's where it's going to be really, really difficult. I think in terms of human assets, the Brits will be able to help them out. But really, in terms of targeting, I think Ukraine is going to suffer significantly.
Tracy, thank you. Chad, thank you. I don't know why you guys are thanking me. You're doing me the favor, and you're helping the audience. Thank you for coming on the show. You got a lot of other things you could do. Thank you for spending time with me and with us. Take care. 4 minutes and 15 seconds. Up next. So, the court didn't put a lot of meat on the bones of saying, let the district court decide this preliminary injunction against the Trump spending changes, what he wants to freeze. Okay? So why is it a good ruling? Why is it supposedly so obvious? And what is the obvious message to the Trump administration? The professor, Alan Dershowitz, knows the answers, and he will teach me and you. Next.
Patients with Huntington's disease. Call your doctor if you become depressed, have sudden behavior or mood changes, or suicidal thoughts. Don't take Ingrezza if allergic. Serious side effects may include allergic reactions like sudden, potentially fatal swelling and hives, sleepiness, the most common side effect, and heart rhythm problems. Know how Ingrezza affects you before operating a car or dangerous machinery. Report fever, stiff muscles, or problems thinking, as these might be life-threatening. Shaking, stiffness, drooling, and trouble with moving or balance may occur.
Take control by asking your doctor about Ingrezza.
I was shocked at the Supreme Court ruling being 5-4, that the Trump administration must unfreeze billions in foreign aid payments subject to what the district court was ruling, and that they sent it back. I was shocked that it was 5-4 and not 9-0. I read Justice Alito's dissent, and I don't get it. It seems like he just wants the president to have more power, but doesn't recognize that that has any providence in law. So I wanted to bring in Professor Alan Dershowitz, of course, Professor Emeritus from Harvard Law, to help me understand. It's good to see you, Professor. Thank you. What did you make of the Supreme Court's reckoning, and in terms of style and substance?
Well, it was a very hastily written, not particularly thought through opinion, but it probably came to the right result. Its goal was to send a message to the Trump administration: wait, you can't do everything. We still have a system of checks and balances, and we're going to be reviewing things like this. You acted too hastily. Instead of saying ready, aim, fire, you did fire and then ready and aim. You cut much too quickly, not with a scalpel, but with a chainsaw. And so everybody acted too quickly. And so the Supreme Court then sent it back to Judge Ali, who then hastily wrote, well, all right, you have until next Monday to do it, not really taking into account the logistics of how you do this. I think the lesson here is that our system of checks and balances is still operating. There are 5 justices of the Supreme Court, even including one who was appointed by Donald Trump, who will hold Donald Trump to account. That's the clear message. The specifics, look, Judge Alito had a point. Should a single district court judge be able to stop a policy of a president? Maybe it should require at least an appellate court decision. Maybe a single judge shouldn't do it. He has a point about that, but he doesn't have a point when he says that judges are irrelevant to this at all and the president can do anything he wants. That simply is not what Hamilton and Madison intended in the Federalist Papers.
But how else would it work, Professor, if it doesn't start with a single district court judge when you're reviewing an executive order? How else would it work?
Well, the courts can appoint a group of judges to sit in cases involving the whole country. Maybe you need some legislation to do that. But there's something that is unseemly about a single judge who, by the way, is shopped for and selected based on what litigants think the outcome will be. At least have a 3-court panel, at least have maybe 5 judges, maybe a multi-district panel, something like that, which would make the decision more legitimate. Right now, many Americans think it's illegitimate to have a single judge selected by one side make a decision. Now, this decision was probably the right one, but you can easily imagine a decision that would be wrong by a single judge, and it would be binding on the whole country.
Well, but I get it. But again, Professor, and again, just help me with this and help the audience as well by extension. It always works that way. With DACA, it starts off with a single venue, then you appeal, all right? And then if you can appeal again and get it en banc, with the full complement of 3 appellate judges, and then you can go to the Supreme Court. I don't understand what's unusual about this.
What's unusual is the meantime. What happens in the meantime? Do you put an end? Remember, if the money has to be paid out, it's never coming back. So it's a permanent decision done by one judge, which could easily have been reversed on appeal. So I think a little bit more thoughtfulness has to go into the process by which judges make decisions that are permanent, irrepealable, and affect the whole country and may in the end be wrong. Can you imagine if it was a decision about whether somebody could be executed, for example, irremediable? Now, obviously, that would be immediately appealed. This is very different, but it is capital punishment for $2 billion worth of money of the taxpayers that will never come back. It's not a good analogy, but...
No. It works. It works. I mean, what doesn't work for me is, so Congress passes the Impoundment Act because Nixon tried the same thing. And to me, it sounds spot on in terms of why a president can't do this. You can veto the spending, and then they try to override it. But once it's allocated, where is the precedent for what Alito was saying, which is, if a president doesn't like the spending in an agency, he can stop it? Well, where does that come from?
the Congress can pass a resolution declaring war, but the president doesn't have to send troops. And I think there are analogies that the president, the executive person who sees that the law must be enforced, can at least partially say, no, we're not going to enforce this aspect of the law. This is a very close question of constitutional interpretation. It's not obvious. But what's unseemly, and what I think Alito focused on particularly, what's unseemly is to have the single judge, may have come from the opposite party, picked by the litigant, making a decision that's irremediable and affects everybody in the country. That just doesn't seem right. It seems to give too much power to unelected judges. And I think that's what basically the Trump administration tried to take advantage of. But I think they got their comeuppance. The Supreme Court said, no, we're going to handle this. We may not handle it perfectly because we're in a rush here and there's time that's ticking, but at least we're sending a message. We're sending a shot across the bow. And that says you're not immune from checks and balances. And I think that's very important, especially after the immunity decision, which seemed to suggest maybe a president is above the law. This one says we're pulling back a little from that, at least at the moment, because we don't know what Barrett and the other justices are going to do in subsequent cases.
Right. Well, that's it's interesting to me. I have to, Professor, thank you very much. Appreciate it. It'll be interesting to see how the pressure works on Amy Coney Barrett. And I just have to say, the idea that this justice, who's obviously a religious zealot, who was put on that court to get rid of Roe v. Wade, now they have problems with her. It'll be interesting to see if it affects her on the next case that is similar to this. Professor, I got to jump. It's great to see you. Thank you for making this clear.
Thank you.
Appreciate you. We'll be right back.